So in the last class, we have started a topic called as a inter-thread communication, and we said that inter-thread communication is nothing but when there are two or more threads, and one thread is depending on the output of another thread, right? So then there exists, so means there will be a requirement for a communication between the threads, right? So in those scenarios, you will be going with respect to inter-thread communication. Okay, and we have seen one example, and we have seen different scenarios wherein which your main thread has to wait for the answer to be generated from the child thread. Okay, first we have used a thread dot sleep, we checked, and we have discussed what is the disadvantage if you are going with respect to thread dot sleep. Then we have seen a method called a join, and we said that whichever thread executes that particular join method, that thread will go for a waiting state. Okay, so it is something like, we said that it is something like, you carry on with your work, I will finish my job of the thread, then I will join you. So it was something like that with respect to join. And the disadvantage of the disadvantage with respect to using a join was it will completely execute your job, right? But our requirement was not something like that. Our requirement was, I just wanted to inform the main thread once the for loop was finished. Okay, and we said that this particular kind of means intimation can be given by the pair of functions which is called as wait and notify. Okay, so wait means this particular thread will be waiting for a child thread to finish. So once child thread has finished its task, it can notify the waiting thread saying that I am done with the work. Okay, and we said that all this wait and notify method must be part of a synchronized block. So in the program whichever is displaying here, we wrote those statements inside synchronized block, right? So this is what we have discussed in the last class. If you have any questions, you can post. If not, we will continue with few other methods with respect to inter-thread communication. Hope whatever example we have discussed in the last class, that was comfortable enough to understand the concept. Okay, so no questions with respect to last class then, right? So let me display some content. Okay, so these are the methods which we have to discuss in a today's session, and that will finish your concept of a threads, right? You all these methods again related to your thread functionalities only. Okay, so is alive is a method which will return some boolean value, right? So this will returns boolean value. Okay, so what is the purpose of this particular method is, if you want to check whether a thread is there or not, that means if it is alive or not, right? So then you can go with the is alive. It will return a true if a thread is alive. It will return a false if a thread has entered some dead state. Okay, if it is in a waiting or some other state, it will show you a true itself. If it has a dead, if it has completed its execution, if it has reached its dead state, so then it will return a false one. Okay, or else before creating a thread, if you want to check whether it is existing or not, obviously it will say it is not existing because you have not yet created a thread, right? Is alive will return you true or false. If a thread exists, it will return you a true. If a thread does not exist, or if it is dead, then it will return a false, right? So we will see an example. No need to keep some means much explanation on this one, right? So coming to a stop, suspend, resume, we need to take a small bit care with respect to these three methods. What is that care is? The care is, in general, JVM won't support these methods. Won't support these methods means it is not like these methods are not there. These methods are there, but JVM wants you when you are using all these methods. The reason is, this is something like you are uh, interrupting the normal execution of a thread. right? What I mean to say is this is something like there will be a normal working of a thread, right? Unnecessarily you are making some clumsy kind of a things, right? So in those scenarios you will be using these methods. I'll give you an example. See, by writing a thread dot start, you will be starting a thread, right? When a thread is under execution, when a thread is under execution, somewhere in the middle you are telling it to stop, right? We don't know what might be the situation it is working with. Say for example, you are connecting to a db database, right? And you are doing some transaction, and this particular transaction now it has been handled by the thread, right? When a thread is handling this kind of a scenario, in the middle if you are writing a thread dot stop, right? So thread dot stop, in the sense you are killing that particular thread, right? When you are killing a thread, we don't know what might be the status of that particular transaction which was in an intermediate state, right? So that is the reason why these particular methods will not be directly supported by the JVM. It will warn you if you are using these methods, right? I have just consolidated with respect to three methods, and I gave you one example saying that these kind of scenarios will be there. So these methods are deprecated, right? So in a Java terms we will be calling it as deprecated methods. Okay. We will first see an example for a is live and a stop. Then we will discuss an example for a resume and a suspend, right? Is it fine, clear till this point? Any doubts with respect to any of the methods? I have not discussed with respect to suspend and a resume. I just gave you some introduction with respect to is alive and a stop. Okay. Mm, right. So let us proceed with a small example to understand the concepts in a better fashion. Uh, one second. Here I have created one example. Later in the same area I'll be writing that resume and a suspend methods also. For a time being, let us write let us see an example for how to work with the is alive and the stop method. Okay. uh, is alive, right? Okay. So let us create my thread extends thread class, right? So here I have to override a run method, public void run. Here I'll not do anything, just write a one for loop for int I is equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, right? So here let me just print system dot out dot println of value of I. Okay. So from the main method, let me just create that particular thread. My thread th is equal to new my thread, right? So just created object of that particular thread, not yet started. I'll just check what will be a output if I'm using a is alive method, right? So system dot out dot println with respect to present thread dot current thread, right? Method, right? Dot is alive. Okay. So not yet started a thread, now it should show false for you, right? Done. Let us start a thread. Started a thread, right? So after starting a thread, let me just check what is its status, right? So once a thread has started, see, after this point you will be having two threads. One is a main thread and another one is a child thread. If a main thread has given a priority, first you will be getting a status of this one, then all these numbers will be printed. Okay. If a child thread has given a priority, then all these numbers will be printed first, then this particular status will be printed, right? So these things we have seen in the last class. Just I'm explaining how we might expect the output. Java C file name dot java, no errors. True. Okay, so after creating object, it is saying that thread is alive. Oh, okay. I wrote with respect to main thread. It is talking about a main thread. So let me do it for a th thread. Okay, main thread will be alive itself. Right. Again, true. 1 second. I just wanted to show that has went to a sleep. Mistakes. Cross exception. After finishing a job, it has to say it has finished its work. 1 second. It is not going for the dead state. After a start, let me just check thread dot stop. I'm stopping the thread. Explicitly tell means explicitly killing that particular thread. Okay, so after killing a thread, I just wanted to check what will be the output. Yes, it is showing you some note saying that suspend demo.java uses or overrides a deprecated API. That means you are using something called as a stop. So it is saying that that is not recommended from the JVM part of it. Okay, so let it be. Let us just cross check. Not given a chance for a thread to execute, but it is 1 second. Right. So we'll do one thing. I did a small mistake. What I have done is when I am saying a current thread, it was taking a main method. So let me remove that particular current thread. Okay, this is a mistake from my side. Current thread. Okay, so let me remove this particular stop. Right. Okay, so we'll discuss about a stop later. I think that current thread method was making some mistake. Okay, so my thread object has been created. Now I am checking what is the status of that. Here I am expecting that it should return a false because you have not yet started a thread. Okay, now after this you will, after this particular statement, you will be having a two threads, so main thread and a child thread. If a main thread has got a priority, so this particular statement should return me a true because that is still alive. Okay, if a child thread got a priority, it will finish a execution, then we will see the status of this particular statement. Okay, compiled. Yes, no errors. What was that? Huh. See, initially it is showing a false because you have not yet started a thread, so it is a false. So when it got a chance, that means here it is not printing a numbers. Main method has a continued execution. As a main method has a continued execution, this is returning a true for you. Okay, so main method has got a execution right, so it is returning a true for you. So after this particular statement, main method doesn't have anything to execute, so child thread has got a priority, it has finished all its execution, right? Is that clear with respect to is alive method? Now say for example, if I'm making a my main thread to sleep for a some time, sleep for a say 1 second, 1 millisecond, right? So if I say 1 millisecond, then obviously the child will get a priority. So when a child gets a priority, it will print complete statements. See, first it was a false, thread went to a sleep, child got a priority. After when a child comes back, right? When a thread tried to execute this part, right? When a thread tried to execute this part, by that time your child has finished its task, so it is printing a false followed by false, right? So this is a reason why I said is alive will return you a true if a thread is existing, or means if a thread is live. Okay, if a thread is not yet started, or if a thread reached to a dead state, it will not a print, so means it will be printing a false for you. Clear with the example? Shall we proceed with the other example? This means next method, which is called as a stop. Okay, so we have already seen how the stop works. Stop says that you wanted to kill that particular thread, right? So again I told you, if you are trying to kill a thread in a between, so there might be a few problems. So your JVM says that all these things are nothing but your deprecated methods. Okay, so in this particular program here, if I am using a thread dot stop, if I am using a thread dot stop, if a main method got a priority, it will sleep. If a main thread got a priority, obviously it will execute a stop, right? So that means you are stopping your main thread. Okay, so let us observe that particular note once again. We will discuss that part. Okay, so what the note is saying, suspend demo.java, this is a file, uses or overrides a deprecated API, right? So recompile with excellent colon deprecation for a details. That means it is saying that if you are not able to understand because of which method you are getting this particular message, you can recompile your program by using this particular statement, right? In a note it is clearly specifying. Okay, so let us compile, that means recompile program by using this particular statement, right? I'm just doing whatever it has said. Java C recompiling with this one. What is our file name? Suspend demo.java, right? When I recompile, it should show me a message. Yes, it is showing me a message saying that there is a warning with respect to deprecation. Stop in a thread has been deprecated. That means you are using a method called as a stop, so that is the reason why you are getting that particular note, right? So in a program, if you don't know because of which methods you are getting this particular statement, you can recompile your program by using that particular hyphen excellent colon deprecation, right? So that says which deprecated methods you are using in your program, right? So this is just a warning. It will not interrupt your execution, so you can easily run the program. It will show you the status false false because you have killed your thread, and later you are checking its status, so it is a false and false. We have discussed is alive, we have discussed what is a deprecation, we have discussed how to use a stop method. Any questions so far? You can post in a chat box. If you don't have a questions, then we'll proceed with that particular uh, suspend and intention of taking these many examples and this much of a description is just to make you comfortable with the programming, not to confuse you, not to make you to feel like this is like a ocean kind of a stuff, right? maybe ocean, but if you know swimming, you can swim a ocean also, right? I'm just training you to how to swim. Okay, right? So that is effort from my side. Comfortable with the is alive stop method? Yes. Okay, thanks for the response. Now I said we have to discuss what is called as uh, these suspend and the resume methods also. Okay, so suspend and the resume methods are also simple methods. Intention of using these suspend and resume method is whenever you want to stop your thread, right? Whenever you want to stop your thread because of its maybe any reason might be there for that. Okay, if your main thread or any thread want to stop some other thread for the because of its execution, you can go with the suspend in the sense temporarily. I am telling go to wait state. Suspend in the sense I'm suspending you from the job. You might have heard of this statement, right? I'm suspending you from the college. What does it mean? Suspending in nothing but you are not debarring, you are not removing them from the college or a work, right? So suspending means for a time being you kept quiet, you keep quiet, right? So once a suspension has given, there should be some acknowledgement for the resume also, right? So you cannot just make it as a suspend and you do your work forgetting what means forgetting to resume that particular suspension. Okay, so suspend and a resume, again this is a combination of the methods. So once a one method has been suspended, that has to be resumed by the resume method. Okay, once one method has been suspended, that particular method need to be resumed back from the resume method by the resume method, right? So I hope things are clear, right? So again these things are deprecated methods. I'll tell you why these things are deprecated methods. The reason is, say for example, you are working with some, say for example, your child thread, right? Your child thread, there is some thread T1. Okay, so there is some thread T1. Now this particular T1 is having some synchronized block, and it has taken uh, the control of a string dot class. Say for example, you have a built-in string class, right? Now what I'm saying is this particular T1, there is a thread called a T1. Now it has a taken lock of a string dot class. That means you have written a synchronized block. What I mean to tell is something like this. You have a class defined called a my thread. So under a my thread, you have a something called as synchronized of string dot class, right? So now what is the meaning of this? Once you are writing a synchronized of a string dot class means if any thread is working in this particular area, other threads are not allowed to enter, right? That is a meaning synchronized of a something, right? If a one thread is executing under a synchronized block, no other threads are allowed to enter into that, correct? That is the reason. Now say for example, when a thread is under a synchronized block, right? If a main thread is suspending this thread, right? So will it come out of this particular synchronized block? No, because it is in a suspension, right? When it is in a suspension, till it will be resumed, till main method says that you resume back for the duty, it will be in a suspension state itself. When it is in a suspended and took a lock of a string class, none other threads can access that particular block, right? So this will create something called as deadlock, right? So there might be another thread which want this particular set of instruction need to be executed, but now those things are not available because the thread has taken that one and it is in suspension mode, right? So this particular combination of suspend and resume may create deadlock state if those things are not used properly. right? So that is the only reason why JVM made these methods as deprecated methods. Deprecated methods in the sense not recommended to be used. Clear with the things? And most of the times, and even in some interviews also, these deprecated methods will not be asked, right? Either it might be a stop or a suspend or a resume. Okay, no one will ask you these methods, like, because these methods are not recommended to be used, so they don't prefer that you should be comfortable by using these methods and all. Okay, so you have a alternate methods not to use so means when a JVM says don't use these methods, then obviously it has to give us some alternate method for you, right? So you have some methods, something like a yield. There is a method called a yield, but there is not, that is not there for your syllabus. If you want to know about this method, you can just google it and just cross check what is the working of this particular yield method, right? So that is your suspend and resume methods. Shall we see a simple example? Not to go with the deadlock, because deadlock, producer and consumer, we have a program with respect to lab. During that time we will discuss how the deadlock will happen and what is the producer consumer problem and everything, right? So for a time being we will just see an example how to use this suspend and the resume methods. Hope a clear, right? The ideas means why a JVM has made all these three methods as a deprecated. The thread might be causing some process, some instancy problem. With respect to suspend and resume, those things are considered as a deprecated methods just because these methods may cause some deadlocks to be happened in a program. Okay, so let us see a small example on this particular suspend and resume. Right, so we will do one small thing. I'll copy paste one program. Can you predict what will be a output of that? And so means I'm not a copy pasting any bigger program, so whatever things we have seen, that part itself, just some using some sleep method or resume method and all. Okay, so let us concentrate on a thread first. I don't have anything extra here. Printing, so means you have a for loop which prints from a 0 to 10, right? If I is equal to 5, I'm making this particular thread to go for a sleeping mode, right? Your child thread will go for a sleeping for a 2 seconds, right? Now in a main thread has been started. After starting a thread, I'm suspending a thread. Suspending a thread in the sense, go to wait state. Suspending a thread in the sense, asking it to go to wait state, right? So after this particular statement, will you be having the two threads? Yes, you will be having a two threads. If a main thread got a priority, if a main thread got a priority, without executing any for loop, you are telling it to suspend, right? If a main thread gets a priority, without executing even a single for loop in a child thread, it will be suspended. Thread will be suspended, right? So after a suspension, after a suspension, right? What a main thread is doing after suspending your child thread, main thread is sleeping for 10 seconds. After suspending your child thread, main thread is sleeping for 10 seconds, right? After coming out of a 10 seconds, it is telling it to resume back, right? It is something like uh, generally in a house, if any elders are there, usually they will be restricting a children if they are playing, right? So they require some time to convince, it means to get a convinced, right? So once they are convinced, then they will allow, okay, you continue with your things, right? So this is something like this. Child thread has started, right? When a main thread observed this, main thread is telling it to suspend. Yes, don't do that one, stop wherever you are. Okay, after that your main thread is taking some time, it is taking some 10 seconds to get convinced. See, I'm just relating a program for understanding. This is not a way how we have written a program, right? I'm just explaining you a scenario to understand the program. Okay. So initially main thread has a stopped child thread working, then it went to a sleeping for a 10 seconds. Once a resume, once you say resume, then a child thread will continue execution, right? So let us see the output. Then if you have any questions, we can take up those questions. Java C. See, again it is showing that you are using some deprecated methods. If you want to know what a deprecated methods we have used, we can recompile that when using a xlint, right? So because of a what methods it is showing a deprecated, because of a methods called as a suspend and a resume, it is showing that you are using the deprecated methods. Okay, let it be, both are warnings itself. Least bothered about the warnings. Let me run the program. Right, initially main thread has got a priority, so it is waiting 10 seconds, right? After 10 seconds, then it will resume back your child thread. See, right? So after printing a 5, it took us some 2 seconds for printing other statements, because that is how we have written it there. Why I have written that particular sleep means, by chance if a child thread got a priority, it will be, so means after executing a 5 iterations, it will go for a sleep. When it go for a sleep, obviously main thread will get a priority, right? What a main thread will do? Hey, you idiot, why you are executing? Suspended, right? Let me run a program. See, after a 5, see, now it is 10 seconds, it will be waiting, because main thread has suspended this particular thread, right? After a 10 seconds, the control will come out of a loop. Something happened. What we have done? Executed. Suspend means, okay, thread went to a sleep, then you are calling a resume. By the time it has finished resume, it should work. 1 second. Run the program once. Oh, MTR came in the middle. Suspend demo, right? Okay. Main has a suspended child. Okay. Child got a priority, executed that. Why this field is roaming? Okay, so not to make things complicated, so this is a simple example which will show you how the suspend and resumes can be used. Okay, and these two methods, again I'm stressing you not to use in a program. That is what your JVM says. Okay, and those stop, resume, suspend, those are considered as deprecated methods. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can post your questions in a chat box. If you don't have a questions, then I have a few questions you need to answer. If you don't have a questions, again I'm telling you, whatever questions I'll be asking, that is for mm, understanding a concept in a better fashion, not to confuse you. So once a child thread goes to sleep after executing a file, it might get a suspended after printing a file. Yes, possibility is there. What is the difference between sleep and suspend? Sleep and suspend, simple. When you are saying a sleep, you are giving us some time, right? After that time, it will come back. It will come back for the execution. When you are telling a suspend, it will be in a wait state until you say resume, right? When you don't know how much time you wanted your thread to sleep, right, then you can go with the suspend method. And here is your syllabus copy. I think I shared a syllabus copy itself. Right. Okay. So this is with respect to multi-threading. Just a cross check whether we have missed any topics. And whenever you are going with respect to gaming kind of application or any database related applications, most of the times thread concepts will be used. Multi-threading fundamentals: creating a thread using a thread class, runnable interface, creating multiple threads, determining when the thread ends, thread priorities, synchronization using the synchronized method, the synchronized statement, right? That means nothing but a block. Thread communication using notify, wait, notify all, suspending a thread, resuming and stopping the threads. Hope you have examples for all these concepts. Means if you want to support this concept with example, you have examples for all these topics. If you don't have a questions, I have a few questions. My question is something like this. You have to be very interactive and you should say your answers quickly, right? Now suppose I have a developed one web application. I have developed one web application, and with respect to database, whenever I say web application, obviously operations will be with respect to database, right? With respect to database, there will be a number of threads which are acquiring that particular database at a time, right? Say for example, you got a notification saying that tomorrow will be a results. Obviously when you heard about that particular statement, you will be checking a time. During that particular time interval, everybody will be trying to enter into a database and cross check what might be the result. Correct. Now with respect to each request, can I say that that particular request is nothing but execution of a thread? That means one thread is expecting a request, so means expecting an answer, expecting a result. Another thread is also expecting a result, another thread is also expecting a result, right? Then no, obviously there should be a something like a synchronization between them, right? May not be a result. I am talking about some other application wherein which a database is there and many threads are acquiring that particular database, means wanted to access that particular database. Obviously they requires something called as a synchronization with respect to all those threads, right? Say for example, if you are performing some transaction kind of a stuff, transaction means obviously at a one particular time there will be a number of requests coming for the particular database, right? So what I mean to say is, if you are going with respect to synchronization, right? So what does the synchronization says? Synchronization says that when a one thread is under execution, other thread is not allowed to enter. Correct. Now just imagine you have a web application where there will be some thousands of requests posted on that particular web application, right? And thousands are posted. Which thread will get a priority? Which thread will go to execution? How can we predict? Can you imagine that there will be a very big long queue of a waiting time? Possibility is there, long waiting time possibility is there, right? If you are expecting a different objects, no problem, right? Obviously you will be having a different accounts and each account will be having a different thread working on that particular account, right? Now what I am talking is, on a single account, if you wanted to do so many operations, right, obviously there will be a delay. If you are going with respect to synchronization, right, that will not be a that much big delay. I'm saying minimum delay will be there, obviously, right? So to overcome this particular delay, right, see, the concept is a simple. What a synchronization says is, once one thread is under execution, other thread is not allowed, right? When this is a scenario, people felt there is a drawback. Drawback is, okay, one thread is under execution means why you are stopping other thread? Other thread might be doing some other thing, may not be a same part, right? So synchronization said we had a something called as a synchronized block. You can go with that. Again, people said, okay, you are doing something with respect to synchronized block, but I want a more flexibility with respect to that. I want both the threads to execute concurrently, right? Whatever I am discussing, that is out of syllabus. I'm just giving you a indication. Whatever you have learned, all those things are a basics, right? So similar to a synchronization, you have a something called as concurrency, right? What does the concurrency will do is, concurrency will allow both the threads to execute simultaneously and prevents data inconsistency. How it will be done, it is up to you whether you want to, if you want to read, you can go through on it. You can just cross check how concurrency will be concurrent or a concurrency, how the concurrent or a concurrency will be used, right? So what is my conclusion, what why I have raised this particular topic is, whatever the things we have studied with respect to a multi-threading, all those things are the basics. With respect to those things, there are a few drawbacks. If you want to understand that, there are some advancements with respect to multi-threading, and you can understand those advancements if you know the basics. Clear with the point? Can I proceed? I have one more question. We have seen few methods with respect to multi-threading. I will just list a few methods. We have seen wait method. We have seen notify method. We have seen, we may not use this method, but there is a method called as a notify all. We have a method called as a stop. We have a method called as a resume. We have a method called as a suspend. We have a method something like okay, so let us take this method. Okay, we have a something called as a start method. We have a something called as a run method, right? Huh. Now the question is whether all these methods belong to thread class only. Obviously, sir, what are you talking? We have taken these many classes, and all these methods we are seeing the first time when we have started with respect to multi-threading only. Is that the answer? And this question will be asked in interviews, not with respect to a theoretical examination. And understanding this particular question is very important. Okay, so what I mean to say is, all these methods will not be a part of your thread class. Okay, only these methods, whichever I have written in the bottom, these methods are the part of thread class, right? What about these methods? These methods are not a part of a thread class, they are part of your object class. Wait, notify, notify all are the methods with respect to object class. Okay, why those three things have been added to a object class? Because this particular wait, notify, notify all can be raised by other objects, something like stack. There is an object in a Java with respect to stack. There is an object for a queue. There is an object for a linked list. There is an object for an array list. There is an object for a list. Okay, so in a Java, whatever the data structures you have we have seen with respect to all those data structures, there are classes implemented, right? So on a stack, if you want to wait, you can call a wait method. On a stack fill, or if a stack is having an element, if you want to notify that, you can use a notify method on that particular stack object, right? On a queue, if you want to notify saying that element has been, so means queue has been filled, right? You can notify that particular information. That means these methods can be applied with respect to objects also. So these are included in the object class, and all other methods, all these methods were with respect to thread, right? Again, I'm telling you, this is for your knowledge. You will not be asked in a theoretical aspects. may be asked in an exam, some interviews. I'm telling may be asked in some interviews, but this should be the answer, right? So they are included in an object class because these can be used on some other objects, something like a stacks, queues, all those things. Okay, and these things are with respect to a thread class. Any questions? And that finishes your fourth unit. From the next class we will be starting with the fifth unit, and tomorrow afternoon session we will be discussing one lab program with respect to a multi-threading only, right? So be clear with all the methods whatever we have discussed with respect to multi-threading. If you have any questions, you can ask tomorrow. We will first solve all your questions, then we will proceed with the lab program, right? So that's it from my side.